How's it going, guys, and welcome back to the Purple Box, the semi-regularly posted series where I try to chronicle every non-unique purple weapon in Borderlands 3 to let you know whether it's trash, treasure, or completely inconsequential. If you'd like to give any of the weapons showcased in this video a go, a save file containing all of them will be available in my Discord server, linked down in the description below. But with that out of the way, Jakobs, for all your old-timey rootin'-tootin' cowboy shooting, big iron on the hip, big dick swangin' needs, complemented with the fine scent of barrel-aged whiskey after blowing the fucking head smooth off a tank. Jakobs doesn't care for all that modern mumbo-jumbo, opting to keep it classic and foregoing elements because you don't need elements when you embed lead 6 inches into someone's fucking cranium. All Jakobs guns specialize in crit, many of them able to roll high crit bonuses on the card itself while also having an additional 10% crit bonus simply for being a Jakobs. Worth noting with this, critical hit on card is multiplicative with other crit damage bonuses, and the manufacturer crit bonus is entirely multiplicative itself. This means if a Jakob has 10% crit on card, you're getting 2 different 10% multipliers on every crit. If you want a more detailed explanation on this, check out the video popping up in the top right corner now. But that's not all, folks, because upon hitting a crit, all Jakobs guns will ricochet their bullets towards other nearby enemies. One shot, multi-kill. Now let's actually get on into things here, starting out with the pistols. Now uniquely, Jakobs pistols do actually have 2 different variants, being the base variant, which of course is 1 projectile per shot, and they can all roll as masher variants, which instead has 5 projectiles per shot, having lower damage per projectile, but a higher overall base damage. The first Jakobs pistol that we'll take a look at here is the Peacekeeper, having the highest base fire rate and the second best reload time, but the worst damage and accuracy. Coming to the ×1 variant, I'm not really sure what this offers. What I can only assume is about to be a recurring theme here is that a Jakobs boasting good fire rate probably isn't going to be worthwhile in most cases, as every Jakobs has an insanely high fire rate, higher than most people are going to be able to click in normal gameplay. We're going to jump ahead quickly to the Ranger's item card to show that the lowest fire rate Jakobs pistol is still 10.25 per second. The Peacekeeper only has about 2 more, and I guarantee most people will not be able to cap the fire rate on either of these guns. This leaves the Peacekeeper having mid as hell damage with dogshit accuracy for no real reason. Could it kill? Sure, but it's straight up worse than the other options. And coming to the Masher, surprise surprise, adding more bullets and a lower accuracy doesn't fix the deep-rooted issues present in the ×1. If anything, it made it worse because now you absolutely have to barrel stuff an enemy, otherwise you're doing less damage than you would with the ×1 by missing pellets. Masher or otherwise, if you're gonna use a Jakobs pistol, I probably wouldn't use a Peacekeeper. Coming next to the Marshal, having the fastest reload and the second best damage, fire rate, and accuracy. So funny thing, with the rolls that I had, my Marshal was actually lower damage than my Peacekeeper, but I decided to stick with it because it does a great job showcasing the difference that accuracy makes, which I often think is a very underrated stat. Even what seems to be a small difference can drastically change the way a gun feels, and this is for sure a case of that. I still wouldn't say that the Marshal is a good gun considering how many shots it takes to kill anything, which, since this is more than one, should mean I'm not actually using a Jakobs, sorry about that, but I did enjoy using it significantly more than the Peacekeeper. The Marshal Masher finally starts to pick up some of the slack, probably being our first pistol that I would actually consider to be good. Amazing? No, but for sure it's viable, taking out a lot of trash enemies in less than a mag. Being a Masher, of course, the accuracy does take a hit, and you definitely still want to use it at closer range, but you don't need your tongue in anyone's mouth like you did with the Peacekeeper. And our final pistol with the Ranger being the highest base damage and accuracy, but lowest fire rate and reload speed. Where the Marshal Masher picked up the slack, the Ranger came in to absolutely carry it away. This gun is accurate, kills quick, and actually feels deserving of having the Jakobs branding. It doesn't kill quite in one shot, but the actual time to kill holds up well and is decently impressive for a purple weapon. And you know what happens when you take the clear best pistol and mash her on up? Yeah, it becomes better. This thing absolutely slaps, and honestly probably just the pistol you want if you're looking for a purple Jakobs. The ×1 is great, don't get me wrong, but the Masher is just that much better. Overall, purple Jakobs pistols don't really hit that same rootin'-tootin' cowboy shootin' big iron head exploding feeling as many of the legendaries, but I didn't really expect them to. None of these guns one-tap, but instead function more as quick scoping or hip-firing spam fire to quickly melt down your targets by way of turning their head into mush, and they're all decently effective at it. That being said, the Ranger is the clear winner, as for some reason the Marshal and Peacekeeper are nerfed on the stats that matter on the basis of having lower fire rate, even though all of the fire rates don't really matter. I wish these pistols had more differentiation. I feel like the Marshal should have been the stats of the Ranger, with the actual Ranger having significantly lowered fire rate to the point where it's noticeable, maybe going down from the current 10 per second to just 3 or 4. The Ranger should be the hand cannon, the Marshal should be the hipfire DPS, and the Peacekeeper, yeah, that one really needs some work. Now moving on to ARs, similarly to pistols, each AR has multiple different variants. Of course, the base ×1, ×4 masher variants, and fully automatic Gatling variants. We'll cover each of these for each of the 3 guns, starting with the Clipper, being the fastest fire rate variant with the lowest damage and accuracy, having accessories that can further increase fire rate or melee damage with increased accuracy bloom if bladed. It's a pretty impressive baseline, but definitely isn't much more than that. A baseline. Again, it's impressive for being the lowest damage purple AR, but I'm definitely wanting it to get better from here. And unfortunately, coming to the Masher variant, we aren't quite getting better yet, and actually I think it's a little bit worse of a showing. It loses fire rate, accuracy, and effectively mag size, being 2 ammo per shot, making for overall way more choppy and inconsistent gameplay. Again, it's not terrible, but this is further from being good than the ×1. Coming to Gatling though, now we're getting somewhere. This gun bursts hard as fuck and will easily one-clip most enemies, which I am more than happy with. Accuracy and recoil is definitely a bit of a struggle though, and you do have to fight against it pretty heavily, but as long as you're managing to land shots, the Gatling Clipper is pretty damn serviceable. Next up is the Repeater, having the second highest base damage, fire rate, and accuracy. The accessories here can further increase accuracy or melee damage and critical hit damage if bladed. A Repeater with accuracy parts is the most accurate out of the assault rifles. The base here is incredibly similar to the Clipper, not really having too many differences on the card and even less differences in gameplay. I actually like the Clipper a little bit more, as, at least in my case, my Clipper was more accurate and the fire rate was definitely noticeable. Once again, it's a pretty solid purple, but nothing too spectacular. The Masher is definitely where the Repeater begins to shine over the Clipper. Where the Masher variant there was almost worse, it's for sure a direct upgrade to the Repeater, and it's mostly just due to how much better the accuracy is. The Clipper Masher suffered due to the close proximity necessary to land all of the pellets and get the max damage, leading to it being very inconsistent. The Repeater Masher is effectively the same weapon with slightly higher damage and way more consistent. The Gatling though is once again very similar to the Gatling Clipper, but I think the Gatling Repeater just comes out worse. The higher damage but lower fire rate actually seems to even out to the same time to kill, but with a drastically lower handling. The Gatling Repeater is just less consistent, being harder to land all of your shots. And finally, we have the Carbine, having the highest base damage and accuracy with the lowest fire rate, with accessories further increasing the base damage or the fire rate. The base DPS of this gun is actually lower than both the Clipper and the Repeater, which does of course make sense being a significantly lower fire rate, but this was a drastic difference that it really didn't make up for anywhere else. Generally, the benefit of a higher base damage is of course less shots to kill an enemy and a larger starting point to boost your damage number up. Ideally, this leads to lower ammo cost, but the Carbine seemed to be about the same a majority of the time, and I say a majority of the time because this gun was still wildly inconsistent. It's supposed to have the highest base accuracy, yet that high accuracy is still only about 70%, meaning the high damage, high accuracy AR can only be used at a mid-range and can still whiff shots. This is an alright weapon and it will kill decently enough, but it's not really different enough from the other two for me to say that it's better. But there is a saving grace because the Carbine Masher is easily the best Masher variant, having a significant increase to its base damage and solid accuracy and handling, keeping it consistent enough to land those hard-hitting pellets right into an enemy's skull. This is an incredibly solid weapon, and I think it makes up for the piss-poor base variant. And just in case that somehow still didn't do it for you, the Gatling Carbine easily sweeps out the competition, potentially being straight up the best purple Jakobs AR out of all of them. This thing just shreds through health bars like it's nothing, burning until enemies are nothing but a a fine red aerosol. I do really enjoy how the Jakobs ARs ended up. All three are really solid weapons that each has some merit, but none of them are particularly amazing for the most part. I do wish that these three somehow managed to fall into place where each had the best form of some variant, and we did get close to that if not for the repeater kind of just sucking ass all around, and the carbine sweeping in both Masher and Gatlin. The Clipper is easily the best base variant, and it would have been nice if the repeater managed to pull through either Gatlin or Masher. Overall though, each is a very solid weapon, and the drastic changes in gameplay that the base Masher or Gatlin variants can provide is really fun. Now coming to the shotguns, keep in mind that each shotgun can have different pellet counts. So the way that I'm going to be covering these is the highest pellet count for each ammo cost bracket. Pretty much what this means is for the Long Rider and their standard gun, I'm just going to be covering the highest pellet count variants, and for the Stagecoach, I'm going to be covering the highest pellet count variant for the 2 ammo cost per shot and the 3 ammo cost per shot. So starting out here with the Long Rider being a single-barreled shotgun with a base projectile count of 7, having a max of 14. The Long Rider has the lowest base damage but the highest accuracy, with accessories that can further increase that accuracy. Now for having the highest accuracy, I do wish the Long Rider was a little bit better. You still need to barrel stuff enemies a majority of the time if you want to consistently hit every single pellet, and it would be nice if the Long Rider was an actual mid-range option here. It's still a really solid gun overall and can kill decently well, even taking out badasses fairly quickly, but it's just a little disappointing that it doesn't lean more into what is supposed to make it unique. Reload speed is also a really important stat if you're going to be using a Long Rider. Luckily, it does have a pretty short reload as is, but being a one-shot mag, using this thing base is going to be a lot more reloading than shooting. Getting that boosted is a pretty big game changer. The Statter gun is our middle-of-the-road shotgun. 7 base projectile count with a max of 19, but tied with the Stagecoach for the highest base damage per projectile. The Statter gun also does have a couple different barrel parts which can drastically change how this gun plays. Statter gun can either have a single barrel, which performs with the usual fully semi-auto of Jakobs, or a double barrel which has a 2-round semi-auto burst before needing a pump. So starting out here with the ×19 double barrel, it's pretty damn solid and does have the ability to double tap enemies, as I'd expect from a gun with a 2-round burst. Unfortunately, that double tap is pretty reliant on actually hitting every single pellet, and the accuracy on the Statter gun is so bad that sometimes even if you're locking lips with an enemy, you might still miss a couple of pellets. At most, the Statter gun would take around 3 to 4 shots to kill a squishy, which really isn't that bad at all, but it can be a bit annoying considering that additional 1 or 2 shots require a pump between them. A 3-shot kill is actually sometimes more annoying than a 4, since after that 3rd shot you have to move over to another enemy, you only get 1 shot before your next pump. Overall, this is a very solid weapon, but it definitely has some room for improvement. Now coming to the single barrel, you ready to see the stat change? That's right, you get lower fire rate and mag size for the trade-off of consistent fire rate. This may seem like a trash deal considering there's only 1 shot in this mag, and you would be 100% correct. Single barrel is far better though with a larger mag size that can actually make use of it. And while of course a larger mag does come with some lower base damage, you're still pumping out more than enough to 3 to 4 shot most enemies pretty consistently, and even sometimes 2-tap. Both of these variants are actually really solid. Which one you want just depends on what you're looking for. You want max burst damage, you're gonna want the double barrel. But are you more looking for consistent DPS rather than quick burst damage, then a larger mag single barrel is ideal. Finally here though, we have the Stagecoach being our double barrel shotgun with a minimum pellet count of 8 with a max of 25 for the highest potential damage output of the shotguns, though does have the lowest accuracy and consumes 2 ammo per shot. Accessories can further increase damage or reload speed. There's another accessory that is a 3rd additional barrel under the main 2, which decreases reload speed, accuracy bloom, and damage per pellet, and increases ammo cost per shot up to 3, but also grants 50% more pellets per shot for that max of 25. Now, if you've been around this game long enough, you already know exactly where this is going. Easily, and I mean easily, the Stagecoach is the best of the 3 shotguns, and it's barely a competition. This thing is consistently a 1 to 2 tapper while just feeling damn good to use. High damage, crazy high pellet counts, spammable fire rate, and a great reload speed. The only drawbacks on the Stagecoach are 2 ammo per shot, which really isn't an issue if you're landing your shots, and accuracy. While the accuracy is pretty poor, it's a fucking double barrel, you're gonna be up close and personal, and it's a damn fine trade-off for the damage that it pumps out. But wait, there's more, and I mean that literally. Coming to the times 25, we've got more pellets, more ammo cost, and more fucking damage. Hopefully it comes as no surprise, but yeah, this is just a better version of the gun all around. Is it that much better? Honestly, not for most builds. On Flak or Moe's, someone that really takes advantage of having more projectiles, you're going to notice a far bigger difference. I only point this out not to say that the times 25 isn't that good, but rather to say that the Stagecoach as a whole is absolutely fucking insane. Times 25 is just the best variant. The biggest downside of using it, of course, is that 3 ammo per shot, but trust me, it's really not gonna matter. You're killing things more than fast enough and spreading 25 pellets worth of ricochets to nearby enemies. Ammo consumption really isn't a huge deal. Overall, the Jakobs shotguns are all incredibly solid options, each performing a little bit differently. While I do wish that these differences were a little more pronounced, I'm happy that they're there, and it does make each feel that much more unique from one another. All of these shotguns are incredibly good, surprisingly so, honestly. But as is often the case with the series, there's one that just kinda does it all, and in this case, it's easily the Stagecoach, offering incredible damage and insanely high pellet counts for the mere cost of a couple more shotgun ammo. And finally here, we will come to our snipers, starting out with the Chichiko being our lowest base damage variant. Accessories here can further increase fire rate or decrease weapon sway, recoil, and recoil height. Now, the Chichiko is certainly usable, and honestly quite surprisingly so, but let's just be real, low base damage for higher fire rate isn't what you want on a Jakobs sniper rifle, especially when that fire rate increase is negligible. These guns are for one tapping, and this sniper will most often 2 to 4 tap enemies. It can sometimes one-shot squishier enemies, but will always fall off hard against badasses. Up next, we have the Calipine being the second highest base damage, with accessories that can further increase accuracy or melee damage and weapon damage if bladed. Now with the Calipine, one taps start to be a little more common, and this will consistently, at minimum, 2-tap squishies. It does still fall off pretty hard against badasses, but not nearly as much as the Chichiko. This is an incredibly impressive showing for being a purple sniper rifle. And finally here, we have the Muckamuck, being the highest base damage variant, with accessories that can further increase weapon crit damage or base weapon damage. I'm sure it's really no surprise to anyone, but of course the highest base damage sniper that also gets additional crit damage manages to come out on top. Who could have seen that one coming? What is surprising though is just how well the Muckamuck can hold up. Of course, it's nothing that's going to be taking over any legendaries, but it very consistently one-taps a majority of squishies and can quickly take out most badasses. It's more than good enough to run at endgame if you just want something incredibly simple to blow the heads off some fellas. And honestly, there's just not much more to say about Jakobs snipers as a whole. They're all pretty generic, being hard-hitting snipers with high crit and low fire rates, which is why it's so easy to say that the Muckamuck is easily the best. While all three are incredibly solid options, there's just not enough to differentiate them, and the few differences that there are just are not big enough for there to ever be a reason to want a Calipine or a Chichiko. I do wish that there was a bit more variety in this category, but honestly, just having a set of purple snipers that all perform as well as these three is nice to see. So overall, let's just be honest. Jakobs, what's not to love? This has easily been one of my favorite manufacturers across the entire franchise, and that is simply because in every entry, they're always just fucking bangers. The amount of times Jakobs has carried an entire playthrough of me is countless, and the amount of fun that I have using these weapons is indescribable. Everyone loves feeling like a badass space cowboy, and being a badass space cowboy is the entire brand here. Jakobs is just simply great at doing what it does. High-powered bullets leaving your gorgeous-looking gun and misting whatever has the misfortune of being on the other end of it in the most satisfying old-timey way possible. These guns are incredible and easily the strongest across-the-board set of weapons that we've looked at in this series so far, with each and every one of them being not only impressive for being purples, but just straight up impressive. If it took more than one shot, you weren't using a Jakobs. But that's gonna about do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, definitely consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, all of that. Down in the description will be a link to my Twitch channel where you can follow to be notified of when I go live, and just below that is a link to my Discord server where you can come and join and hang out. But with that all being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one.